Sometimes the loneliest you'll ever feel is when you're the one making everyone else laugh. You know the moment, the room roaring around you, your smile stretched too wide, your laugh a little too loud, your heart somewhere far away, wondering how you became a stranger to yourself. But you keep going. You shine even brighter because you're terrified that if you stop, even for a second, let's say, the silence will swallow you whole. You post the perfect picture. You tell the perfect story. You throw yourself into the spotlight, hoping, it's praying, that it will fill the emptiness gnawing quietly inside. Carl Jung once warned that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And here you are, smiling, dancing, dazzling, while the real you waits quietly in the wings unseen. The world rewards the mask, the world loves the laughter, but the heart knows the cost. The heart keeps the secret count. How many jokes you've told to hide the ache, how many parties you've lit up while burning out inside, how many times you've laughed just a little too hard, hoping it would drown out the sound of your own loneliness. There's a moment coming, a brutal, beautiful moment, when the noise will fade. And when it does, a question will rise up in the silence like a ghost you can no longer outrun. Who are you when no one is clapping anymore? And are you ready for the answer? Or will you try to outrun it one more time? The world doesn't just love your smile, it demands it. Be the bright one, be the strong one, be the one who never runs out of energy, who never lets the silence creep in. And if you're breaking inside, smile wider, laugh louder. Convince yourself first. Maybe then the world will believe you. Fanny Brice lived it. The woman whose jokes made crowds roar once said quietly, "They loved the funny girl, but no one ever wanted to know the woman who cried when the curtain fell." They loved the image, not the woman. Vaslav Nijinsky lived it too. The man who defied gravity on stage, who seemed untouchable, whispered after the crowds left, "They clap for the dream, not the man." And maybe you're living it right now. Maybe you know exactly what it's like to make everyone laugh, then cry alone in your car before the engine even starts. Maybe you know what it's like to post a picture where everything looks perfect and feel more invisible than ever. Maybe you know what it's like to hear someone say, "You're always so happy," and wonder if they'd still say it if they could see the version of you that sits awake at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering when you started disappearing. The mask doesn't just hide you from the world, it hides you from yourself. Every time you perform joy you don't feel, your heart learns that real emotions are unsafe. Every time you shine when you're secretly falling apart, your soul learns that survival means silence. And little by little you stop asking yourself what you need. You only ask yourself what the world expects, but there's a cost no one talks about, a hollowing out, a quiet kind of dying that doesn't look dramatic, just a slow fading, a slow forgetting, a slow surrender. You start wondering if there's anything real left under the performance at all, but deep beneath the applause and the smiles and the exhaustion, something still breathes. A small, stubborn ember, waiting for the moment you stop performing long enough to notice it's still there, waiting for the moment you remember. You were never meant to be loved for the role you play. You were meant to be loved for the truth you carry. And maybe, just maybe, it's not too late to remember how to live without the mask. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being surrounded by voices, surrounded by smiles, surrounded by hands reaching for you, and somehow still feeling like you're sinking. You laugh on cue. You tell the story they expect. You play the role so well that sometimes even you believe it, for a while. But then the night grows quiet. The crowd thins. The conversations drift toward other faces, other names. And you're left standing there with a drink in your hand and a hollow in your chest, wondering how you can be the center of the room and still feel invisible. Carl Jung warned that the persona we create to survive eventually becomes the barrier that traps us. The mask doesn't just protect us from judgment, it shields us from real connection too. You can only shine so brightly for others before the light starts to blind you to yourself. Democritus, the philosopher who laughed at the madness of the world, wasn't laughing because he found life beautiful. He laughed because he knew if he ever let himself feel the depth of it, it might destroy him. And maybe you know that feeling too, laughing too hard at jokes that don't touch you, performing joy when all you really want is for someone, anyone, to see past the act and ask if you're okay. There's a strange cruelty to it. The more you give the crowd what they want, the less they see who you really are. You become the laughter, you become the light, you become the comfort they seek, and you vanish. But there's a reckoning coming, the slow erosion of a self stretched too thin, smiled too wide, clapped too long, and when it arrives, it won't ask if you're ready. It will simply whisper, "Are you still there underneath all this, or have you become the role you were only supposed to play for a little while?" Real courage is not loud. It doesn't look like standing taller, smiling brighter, charging forward. It looks like trembling hands. It looks like whispered truths. It looks like standing perfectly still when every instinct in you screams to run back to the safety of performance. It's hearing the crack in your own voice and choosing to keep speaking anyway. It's feeling the tears threaten at the edges and letting them fall instead of swallowing them down. Kabir said, "The mask you wear to please the world robs you of your own breath, and you can feel it, can't you? The shortness of it, the tightness, the way pretending begins to suffocate something deep and unbreakable inside you. The world will never tell you it's safe to take off the mask. The applause will never tell you to stop performing. The bright lights will never dim themselves to make room for your truth. You have to choose it yourself. You have to choose to walk off the stage, even if no one follows. You have to choose to sit in the silence, even if it terrifies you." Václav Nijinsky found it too late. When the crowd stopped clapping, he was left with a silence he didn't know how to survive. Fanny Brice found it in the empty dressing room after the show. When the makeup came off, when the lights faded, when the last joke had been spent, there she was, alone with a woman she had barely gotten the chance to know. And you, standing here now, you have a choice they didn't know they had. You can listen to the sadness you've hidden. You can sit with the loneliness you've laughed over. You can hold the fear without letting it make you small. Because Carl Jung understood something the world forgets. What you refuse to face within yourself will haunt your life from the shadows. But what you dare to meet will transform you. The shadow isn't your enemy. The sadness isn't your failure. The loneliness isn't your shame. They are the doorways back to yourself. And if you are brave enough to walk through them, you will find something far rarer than applause, far more precious than admiration. You will find you, the unmasked, unedited, unbreakable you, the you who was never born for performance, but for presence. It doesn't happen in a dramatic explosion. The mask doesn't shatter all at once under the weight of a single moment. It crumbles, quietly, in ways you barely notice at first. It's the night you cancel plans because you can't fake one more smile. It's the morning you stare into the mirror, practicing the face you think they still want to see, and wondering why it feels so heavy now. It's the moment you tell a story that once made you shine, and you feel nothing. Piece by piece, the performance unravels, and underneath all the polished laughter, the bright stories, the endless energy, you find the silence you've been running from. At first, it's terrifying. You realize how much of your identity was built on being what others needed. You realize how little of yourself you have left. You realize that somewhere along the way, the line between surviving and disappearing blurred, and you crossed it without even knowing. And for a moment, a long, hollow moment, you wonder if there's anything real left under the ruins. Carl Jung spoke of this reckoning. He said that the self we exile into the unconscious does not vanish. It waits. And when the mask falls away, it returns. All the sadness, all the loneliness, all the hidden parts of you that once ached to be seen, not to destroy you, but to make you whole again. Kabir whispered, "Tear off the mask, hear the music no one else can hear." But tearing it off feels like tearing off your own skin, because the mask wasn't just armor. It was the only version of you the world rewarded. And standing here now, broken, exhausted, raw, you are faced with the most dangerous, most sacred question of all. Will you keep pretending, or will you dare to exist without the mask? The fall is terrifying, but it is not your end. It is the first breath of your real beginning. The place where you finally stop asking who the world needs you to be, and start remembering who you were before the applause taught you to forget. The world will tell you to keep performing, smile wider, shine brighter, move faster. But you know something now that the world cannot unteach. The spotlight is not your home, the applause is not your oxygen, the performance is not your soul. Real joy doesn't scream for attention, it hums quietly in the spaces where you no longer need to prove yourself. It rises when you tell the truth, even if your voice shakes. It shines when you sit with your own sadness without running away. It lives in the moments no one sees but you, and that is enough. Carl Jung said that what you refuse to bring into the light of consciousness will rule your life from the shadows. But when you dare to face it, when you dare to hold your own brokenness with open hands, something extraordinary happens. You stop needing to be seen by the world. You start seeing yourself. The sadness you carried wasn't a weakness. It was proof you still cared. The loneliness you endured wasn't your shame. It was the doorway to real connection. The silence you feared wasn't your end. It was your beginning. You were never the mask. You were never the applause. You were never the polished story told for the comfort of the crowd. You were always the fire beneath it all, the soul waiting to be reclaimed, the light too wild and too beautiful to be staged. Rainer Maria Rilke once said, "We come of age as masks. Our true face never speaks." But today, right here, right now, you can let your true face speak, even if it trembles, even if it doesn't fit the story they expected. Because the world doesn't need another perfect smile. It needs your real, imperfect, breathtaking presence. If you have ever smiled while breaking inside, if you have ever kept dancing while your soul begged you to sit still, then this is your reminder. You are not alone. You never were. And if this feels like your story, if you recognize yourself in these words, then share it. Because someone else is still out there, smiling through the loneliness, waiting for permission to come home to themselves. Be the reminder they need. Be the voice you once wished someone would have been for you. Be the light you were always meant to carry, and never ever apologize for finally being seen.